One of the most common things I hear from homeowners is we'd love to move, but we don't even know where to start. Maybe you're wondering if you should sell first. Maybe you're worried about finding a house before yours sells. Or maybe you've looked online at homes and immediately thought, we can't do anything until we figure out what to do with our current home. If any of that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. My goal today is simple. I want to help you understand your options and hopefully leave with a little more clarity than you came with. Hey, I'm Chelsea with Dream Homes of Tulsa. I've been in real estate for 9 years. Before that, I was an elementary school teacher. I think that still influences a lot about how I do business. I like to take something that's big and complicated and seems scary and really break it down into smaller pieces that make sense. Because buying and selling at the same time can feel complicated. But once you understand the moving parts, it becomes much easier to figure out your next step. Any of these sound familiar? I want you to look through these for a second. How many of these have crossed your mind? What if I sell and can't find a house? What if I find a house too quickly and mine takes too long to sell? Am I going to have to move twice? I don't even know how much equity I have. What if the market changes while I'm in the middle of all this? Honestly, these are all valid concerns. And the good news is every single one of them has a solution. So we'll talk through it and figure out what works best for your situation. Number one is so important to remember, you are not alone. If you've been stressing about this, I want you to know you're definitely not the only one. This is actually one of the most common situations homeowners face. The reason it feels complicated is because there are multiple moving pieces, but people successfully navigate this every day. You don't need to know everything right now. You just need a plan. Here's what we're going to go over today. First, I'll give you a quick snapshot of what's happening in the Tulsa market. Then we'll talk about equity and why that's such an important piece of the puzzle. After that, we'll walk through the 3 most common ways people buy and sell at the same time. We'll spend some time talking about pricing because honestly, that's one of the biggest factors in how smoothly this process goes. And then we'll wrap up with a simple action plan you can use moving forward. The Tulsa market. I promise I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking statistics, but there are a few numbers that matter. The first thing I want you to notice is inventory. Right now, we're sitting at about 2.5 months of inventory. And what that means is if no new homes came on the market, everything currently available would be sold in less than 3 months. That's still considered a seller's market. That's good news for you. Home values have also continued to increase, which means many homeowners have more equity than they realize. And the other number I want you to pay attention to is in this fine print right over there. Well-priced homes are selling in about 9 days. We're going to come back to that later because it affects almost everything else we're talking about today. What does this mean for you as a seller? It's still a pretty favorable market. Homes are selling, buyers are active, and many homeowners have built up equity. On the flip side, if you're buying, you still need to be prepared because the good homes don't sit around very long. That's why having a plan at the beginning matters. Your equity is your superpower. Before we talk about the strategies, we need to talk about equity because your equity impacts almost every decision you'll make during this process. So what even is equity? Well, let's keep it simple. It's your home value minus what you owe. And that's your home equity. That's it. So if your house is worth $350,000, you owe $175,000, you have roughly $175,000 in equity. Now, there are selling expenses, but we'll get to those later. Understanding this number is so important because for many people, the equity becomes their down payment on their next home. One thing I see all the time is people assuming they just don't have enough equity to move. Then we actually run the numbers, and sometimes they're surprised by what they find. I've had plenty of conversations with homeowners who thought moving wasn't an option until they understood what their home was actually worth and what their equity looked like. And that's why understanding your numbers comes first. Now let's talk about this everyone wants to know. How does this actually work? There are 3 common ways people buy their next home when they need to sell first. There's not one right answer. The best option depends on your finances, your timeline, your comfort level, and your goals. First option is to sell first. This is probably the path I recommend most often, not because it's always the best option, but because it gives people the most certainty. You know what your home sold for, you know how much money you're working with, and you can make decisions from a position of confidence, not what if. The biggest concern people have is usually, what if I don't find a new house in the time that my old one sells? We'll talk about how to handle that next. One of the biggest misconceptions is that selling first automatically means moving twice. That's not necessarily true. There are a lot of tools we can use. Sometimes it's a leaseback, sometimes it's a longer closing timeline, and sometimes it's bridge financing. Every situation is a little different. The point is, there are ways to create flexibility. Now, what if you want to buy first? This option works really well for some people, especially if you have enough cash reserves and qualify for financing while still owning your current home. The biggest advantage is obvious. You have all the time you need and you only move once. The challenge is carrying 2 home mortgages for a period of time. That leads us to a simultaneous closing. This is usually what everyone wants to do. You sell one home, buy another, move one time, close on the same day. Everything lines up perfectly. And most of the time it does. But it does require planning, communication, and perfect timing. When it works, it's fantastic. So which path fits you? Take a screenshot of this slide. Seriously, because it's a great summary. There are 3 options. And remember, the best path isn't necessarily the same for everyone. It's the one that works best for your situation. If you only remember one thing from today, I want it to be this. Pricing matters a lot. This isn't about getting your home sold quickly just for the sake of selling quickly. It's about maximizing your results. Because the longer a home sits, the harder the transition tends to become. The goal isn't to impress Zillow or your neighbors. The goal is to put the most money in your pocket and help you get where you want to go next. If you're planning a move, get pre-approved early, please. Even if you aren't planning to move tomorrow, knowledge is power. And the more you know about your budget and financing options, the easier every other decision becomes. This is the process I walk people through every single day. Notice what's first: understanding your home's value and understanding your equity. Everything else builds from there. Is now the right time? I'm not here to tell you whether you should move. That's not my decision. But I do think it's helpful to ask yourself some honest questions. Why do you want to move? What would be different about the next home? What would need to happen for this move to make sense? Those answers are different for everyone. What's next? If today's workshop was helpful and you're thinking about moving sometime in the next 6 months, next year, or even further out, I'd be happy to help. Sometimes people leave these conversations realizing they're ready right now. And sometimes they realize they need more time. Honestly, both outcomes are perfectly okay. My job isn't to convince you to move. My job is to help you understand your options and make a plan that fits your goals. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I really appreciate it.